Well, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a good day, and we have another one to go, very much like today. And so if you made it through this one, you'll make it through tomorrow. Tomorrow should actually be easier, because you'll know what to expect. It's not so hard, huh? Not too tough. I think you'll agree it's quite easy to be quiet, and everybody's doing a really, really good job. I appreciate it. Tonight I'm going to talk about a few things, and then we'll do a meditation, a walking meditation, and then one more group meditation after the walk like we did last night. So you can just meditate as long as you want to, or as short as you want to, whatever you feel like doing. And I know the energy level is, a lot of it depends on how we sleep at night. So if you're tired, by all means go to bed. If you're not, take advantage of the energy level that you have. And so as far as meditating, the last meditation, just kind of wing it, see how you feel, see how it goes for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about not necessarily spiritual teachings, but I kind of want to stay right in with in line with meditation and some of the things that come up in meditation and life, because meditation is it's a complete reflection of what's going on in our lives. If we have difficulty meditating, if there's some uncertainty or doubt or something comes up in our meditation, it means that our life is the same way, pretty much. If we notice that the mind is scattered and not very concentrated, that's probably what's happening in our life. If we feel very clear, calm, that's probably what's happening in our everyday life. And so these are really good indications of what's going on in our world. In that way, we can use meditation as a biofeedback mechanism, sort of. We really get a chance in the practice of meditation to see what's coming up for us. And what's coming up is for the most part, generally something that we should take a look at and deal with, but not necessarily going in and tearing it apart and judging it and investigating it to the extent that there's decisions made and there all this cognition is happening in our meditation. The awareness is really what is the benefiting factor in meditation, just being aware of these things that happen. And it's the awareness that makes any kind of hindrance disintegrate. So it's not really our doing, and technically there's nobody to do anything anyway. All we have to do is be aware of it and what it is doing in our life and why it's there, and really just know that it's impermanent and actually see it fall away. It's very interesting how it works. But first of all, we have to discover it, and we have to see it for what it is. And what I'm talking about primarily are the 5 hindrances. Sometimes they're broken down into 3. We hear about greed, hatred, and delusion. It's kind of a common group of negative states that happen to us, is greed, hatred, and delusion. And I'm talking in Buddhist terms, that how these things come up. And when it's kind of an umbrella that's talking about negative mind states. Greed or desire, hatred, or which is aversion, and then delusion, which is kind of a again another umbrella talking about restlessness and worry and doubt, and physical and mental fatigue as well. And in particularly in the discourses in Buddhism that mindfulness and meditation were mentioned, there was always 5 hindrances that came up. These 5 hindrances, and it's really beneficial for us to know these 5 hindrances by heart, so that when they're present, we can identify them, because they're related to every negative mind state that we have. And if we have trouble concentrating, if we have trouble being mindful, if we have trouble, it really in any aspect of life, it's one of these hindrances that cause the problems. And many of you have heard me talk about them before, and the reason I bring them up is because I really want to drive home how important they are, just to know that when there's something happening in our lives that makes us feel incomplete, that it is a hindrance. And the first one is desire, and which is probably when people think of Buddha or the Buddhism or the Four Noble Truths or whatever, they think of how this desire that we have causes the suffering that we have. Because Buddha said that many times. In his very first discourse, the Four Noble Truths, he just came out and said that, hey, we suffer because we have these desires. But he also said that there's a way out of this suffering, and that's by following this particular path that he laid out, which is the Eightfold Path. And all through Buddha's teachings, he talks about desire and how it causes suffering for us. But when we look at his teachings, ultimately what he's saying is, if we desire for things to be different than what they currently are, there's stress involved. And that really makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, that's what caused. If everything was completely exactly the way we wanted it, we wouldn't have any stress. We'd be completely content. We would understand how everything is. We would understand how our relationships break apart, and how we lose our material things, and how our body gets old and ages and dies. And we would be content with that. We would understand that and be happy with it. But we want things to be different. There's some things that we just don't understand or we don't see clearly. And we want things to be different than what they are, than what they currently are. So we desire. That's a very subtle form of desire. And desire can be very subtle, and it can be very everyday kind of desires. There could be a subtle desire to eat. And these are the kinds of questions that come up when you talk about this teaching, that we have to have this, we have to have the desire to use the restroom, we have to have the desire to eat, we have to have the desire to breathe air. But many of these are just the instinctual makeup of this being. You know, we eat food for substance, and we breathe, and these very subtle desires are just built-in mechanisms for us, for our survival. And then we get into survivals of material things, new cars, new homes, new places to go, new relationships, people, places, things. And then we get into very heavy desires, such as addictions and things that cause big problems for us. And so there's different levels of these desires, but ultimately it all leads to the same thing, that we want things to be different. And so whenever we physically or mentally reach for something and want something, we have this mechanism, and we can see that and know that it is one of these hindrances, that desire. And sometimes it's just darn right out greed. And there's always an I behind it. I want this or I want that. I want things to be different than what it is. This is mine. I want this to be mine. But we can desire things to be better for other people. We can have virtuous desires such as that. And in those kind of desires, the I takes the back seat. It has nothing to do with us. It's trying to benefit others. And desire to better ourselves, maybe for other people. That's why we're here. We had a desire to actually come here. It subtly different kind of desire for each of us, but we wanted to better ourselves in some way, to make it maybe a better place for our loved ones. A better place for the people that we associate with by having us around. And thankfully, with meditation and the practices that we're doing here, when we really get it and we start to benefit from it, we're usually the last ones to know it. It's the other people that come out and say, there's something different about you. What have you been up to? And they notice the change before we do. So that's one of the good things about this kind of practice. So beyond desire, the very first hindrance, the next hindrance that we're looking at is aversion. So desire is wanting, it's bringing stuff on. We want this, we want that. The aversion is just the opposite, pushing things away. And that's usually referred to as fear and hatred, these kinds of things. Aversion is a negative. Sometimes it's seen as, desire is seen as a pleasant thing. Sometimes aversion is seen as a negative thing. These pleasant things we want in our life as desire, unpleasant things that we don't want in our life as aversion. And in Buddhism, those are called, really defined as feelings that we have. Maybe we'll talk more about the feelings later. But the aversions and the desires, in some ways, they're very similar, because it's still a wanting things to be different. That there's this person, there's this I that wants things to be different in our life. I don't want this, or I do want this. I want more of this, or I don't want that at all. So there's a asking for something to change. And with awareness, if we see these as desires and aversion and know that everything is impermanent, it's going to change anyway, we can rest. We don't have to get so serious about these situations and just see them as desires and see them as aversions. And these are the things that come up in our meditation. That we don't want to be sitting this long, we want that to be different. We want to be sitting longer, maybe, we want that to be different. We want a louder bell or a softer bell, or we want different food or more food or less food, or we want to be someplace different, someplace else. In our meditation, it could be physical. We want a softer cushion or a harder cushion, or a colder room, warmer room. All these different things come up, very, very subtle. And if we see them for what they are and see them as desires and aversions, this awareness We shine that light of awareness on these things, and they just fade away for us. Awareness is so important in this area. So the third hindrance, often referred to as the third hindrance, or one of the hindrances, I should say, is restlessness and worry. And that's the mind being not able to land on anything, worrying about this or that. It's kind of a plague these days. The restlessness can be physical or mental, usually a mental restlessness, and it's spotted very easily in concentration practices or in meditation period when we can't rest our attention on something for very long. And the mind seems scattered, can't seem to land on the breath, if we're using the breath as a meditation object, for example. Restlessness and worry can keep us up at night, and it can be very, very easily seen in our meditation practice. One of the great values of meditation is seeing this restlessness and worry. One of the situations we run into is we think that it's this monkey mind is very common, and because we see it a lot. And a brand new meditator will see the mind, all this restlessness and this worry and this mind not being able to settle in any place, and think, well, I'm just not going to I'm just not a good meditator. It's not going to work out for me, and then they stop because they feel that this is very much a unique thing in their mind. But again, as soon as we shine that light of awareness on what is happening, it disintegrates. Consistency in the practice of meditation is really the key behind settling that restlessness and worry, and seeing it very, very clearly for what it is. Another aversion, or another hindrance, I mentioned three of them, right? Desire, aversion, restlessness, and worry. And then the fourth one is doubt. And doubt can have many forms. One of them is it won't even let us get to the retreat. It won't let us get to the cushion. It won't let us get to our meditation object, because there's a feeling of being limited, or even doubting that something is beneficial for us, doubting that something is going to work, doubting that we're worthy, doubting that we're capable of doing something. All these doubts will come up, and it's a huge, huge factor from us preventing to do anything that we want to do in the world, really. And again, I think it's one of the really beautiful gifts of meditation to see doubt for what it is. If we're in a place in our life where we are not where we want to be, and we think that we can't get to that place, that's doubt. And it's a real negative state that sometimes we completely overlook. We think it's very natural for us to feel like we can't get someplace or we can't achieve something. And I'm talking big things and little things. I'm talking about getting on the cushion, the meditation cushion in the morning, something like that, as well as getting that new job or whatever it might be. The bigger things in life, we could say. Doubt will, for many people, doubt would stop us from getting to a retreat like this. I doubt that it's going to be beneficial. I doubt that it's going to. I doubt that I can afford it. I doubt that They can get a ride. All these different things that can come up. So we truly are limitless beings, and the only limits that we put on ourselves are the only limits that we have are the ones that we put on ourselves. It's like we have these boundaries and these borders that we actually put a cocoon around us in some ways. This limiting factor of us against the world, kind of. And once that's broken down, the doubt falls away too. There's a complete oneness with us. With this in the world, there is no this in the world. It's just, it's all the same factor. So we move through the world much, much easier by seeing doubt for what it is. And this is where it starts, right here. The other hindrance, what is considered the fifth hindrance, is sloth and torpor, or the drowsiness, the fatigue, and it could be physical and it could be mental. And one of the interesting things about meditation is that when we get into the area of concentration, there is no fatigue in pure concentration. It's very, very energetic. It's like somebody telling us really good news. We're not tired. There's energy there. Might not last forever, but we can experience that energy. It just comes up, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's just there. When we're very happy, very excited, there's energy there. When we're bored, when we have doubt, when we have aversion, when we're burnt out, there's fatigue. Mental and physical fatigue. Fatigue can be seen in concentration as well, or in meditation, particularly in the area of concentration. I was talking to, in one of the conferences today, I've mentioned this, it's in one of my books, this dial, or this barometer. Like if this is if we're in the middle here and this is concentration or presence, and we lean one way towards thinking, a little bit of thinking is very normal, and even when we're deeply concentrated, there's thought happening, but it's in the background, so a little bit of thought isn't bad. When there's more thought, there's starts to be a little bit of a problem. We're not meditating so well. Sometimes in our meditation we can discover that we can look like the best meditator in the world, and we're not even meditating. We're just sitting here thinking. We're thinking about the past and future. Maybe we're fixing something. Taking apart a carburetor or something. Fixing something, fixing the screen door on the house or something. Then 1,000 miles away. And we're not even meditating. Then we might notice that and we go, oh, I'm supposed to be focusing on the breath. So we come back up to this concentration, and also what we can call presence, because it's really virtually the same thing. And then on the other side is the other side of thinking is sinking. We get a little bit of drowsiness. We get maybe a cloudy mind. Starts out as relaxation, very, very relaxed. And then we start to daydream a little bit, and then if we go a little bit too far, again, we're not meditating. We're completely lost. And again, we can look like we're professional master meditators, but we could be anywhere. We might even be asleep. And indeed, I've heard a lot of people say, I had the best meditation. It was just so comfortable and so relaxing. And I'll ask them what they did, and they have no idea. So in reality, what was happening is they're just sleeping. With their sitting up straight, just really just taking a nap. So we got thinking and sinking, thinking and sinking. And in the middle is this this meditation where we're supposed to be at. So we can go here and there. There's nothing wrong with that. It's very typical. But when we go too far one way or too far the other way, that's really what we want to watch out for. And our job really as meditators is to know what our meditation object is, and then when something comes up in the mind, to look at it briefly, and if it's a hindrance, if it's one of these 5 hindrances, or a mixture of the hindrances, or even it could be 3 or even 4 of these hindrances combined, which makes it a little bit harder to really identify. We see these hindrances, we see really briefly identify them, see them for what they are, then come back to the breath. We don't want to linger on them, because when we start fixing things, if we start fixing, we are incorporating striving and stress into our meditation practice. That's exactly what we don't want to do. We want to go the other way. We want to release striving and stress. And so there's really there's no room to be fixing anything in meditation. Sorry if you came here to fix stuff. It's not going to. And again, meditation is just a letting go. It's seeing these hindrances, maybe thinking in terms of, okay, there's greed, the opposite of that is generosity, right? And there's desire. The desire and greed, opposite is generosity. And if there's anger or fear, the opposite of that is seeing anger and fear as the past and the present. Fear can only happen from something that we're unsure of that might happen in the future. It's completely false. Anger is something that already happened in the past. We can't get angry at something that didn't happen. And so these things are the past and the future. Complete false, very untrue things that come up in the mind, the aversions. And the desires are generally something that we want in the future as well, but they can be something that we revisited something in the past that we want more of. So it could be past or future. Did you see the opposites of these things? Doubt is knowing that we are completely limitless beings. We're completely limitless. And to drop that barrier, that shell that we have around ourselves. Restlessness and worry, we generally, again, it's past and future. When we're very present in the present moment, there's nothing wrong. There's really nothing wrong. Even if we have a severe pain in the body, we just see it as pain. Not even our pain. We don't identify with it. Not when we're in the present moment. That's when we get very close to the self or the I, the ego, just falling away, and it doesn't cause a problem. And then, as far as fatigue goes, particularly in meditation, work with concentration and notice the energy that comes up. Another thing you can do is use the breath to to focus on the top of the inhalation and allow the awareness of that top of the breath to bring more energy into the body. So we see these 5 hindrances, and the Buddha said that these hindrances are what hinder our concentration, they hinder our mindfulness, and they hinder our happiness in life. Any negativity can be related to these. So it's really worth it for ourselves to know these 5 hindrances by heart. And maybe when you're doing your walking meditation, just run them through your mind a few times, and if you forget what they are, they're on the on the bulletin board. There's a meditation instructions, and they're printed in there. And definitely, if you didn't know anything about the hindrances, when you walk away from this retreat, I hope you walk away with that little bit of knowledge about them. And I think it's enough to really change things for a person. Okay, I'd like to do a meditation. Just be about a half-hour meditation, because we'll do some walking at 8 o'clock. And then, like I said, we'll do 20 minutes of walking. And this is the first time we did walking in the dark. But there's quite a bit of lighted up spots here. And you probably need a little jacket or something like that. If you don't have a jacket, you just take a blanket and wrap it up. You can look like a monk or a nun walking around. And then we'll come back in here, and like I said, you can meditate as long as you want. There'll be a beginning bell to bring everybody in. Just come in and sit as long as you want, and then we'll just take it from there. All right. This meditation, it'll be a sound meditation if you've never done one before. Not to confuse you on your meditation object, but you can still stay with the breath if you want, but otherwise we're just using sound. And when we switch meditation objects, it might be kind of new in a retreat to be switching objects, but we're treating the sound just as we would with the breath. We're just bringing our attention to it. And so all you have to do is listen, and when your mind gets carried away, just notice what it's being carried away from or to, acknowledge it, and then come back to the sound. But you can stay with the breath if you want as well. But I'm just going to be using the bowls. This is brand new for me, and I wanted to do it just to kind of mix things up and kind of get a little bit of energy this late at night. Otherwise, it can get kind of it can go slumpy. So I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit for us. Okay. So just make yourself comfortable and just gently close the eyes. It should be real enjoyable.